Hi, I'm DeeDee.
Hi, I'm Angela.
And this is the Formidable Widow Podcast.
It's okay. And I'll give you space. And so that's where it's a bit different. I think because of the diagnosis, and this is what I mean when I say our stories are so different in that what's causing that pain right there is the hope just got snatched from you. You were already in recovery, and then it just got taken. Yes. And so for me, it was more like he's going. It's just a matter of when, and so that was what was difficult for me. So seeing, and similar to your story though, when Tommy had his first brain surgery, afterward he got up. I picked him up and he walked. He didn't even use the wheelchair. He was just like, I'm going. And I'm like, you literally just had surgery on your brain. Like, sit down. He didn't want to do that. He's like, I'm going to fight this thing. Meanwhile, as the wife, I'm looking up on Google, which is a horrible thing to do.
Yes.
And it was just like, not good. So we just went through a lot of, I was taking him to Duke. We went to another university to do tests and trials, and he didn't qualify for them. So it was a lot of like long drawn out surgeries and treatment, chemo and all of that stuff. And I just remember when he started to change personality. That was hard. And mind you, I had 3 young girls.
How long was that chemo? Sorry, how long did he do the chemo?
The chemo was like 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he had to do radiation. So it was like...
This is all 2019 still.
Well, now we're into 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because he was alive for 18 months. And then he just started to decline. And so for me, it was more like I started to take care of him. Where you had the feeding bag, for me, it was more like the walking. Like I remember every day he would try and walk, right? He couldn't run anymore, so he would be walking. And I remember the one time that we went walking together in our neighborhood, and his foot was starting to slide. Like he couldn't lift it.
Yeah, you're dragging it.
And I was like, oh God, And then like his arms, he couldn't like grip things. And then noise was too much for him. We have 3 small girls running around and he's like, shh, no music, or turn the lights down. And so our whole like family dynamic just started changing, and my kids were like, what's happening to Daddy? He's not the same person. And so it was that slow decline, but he was fighting to the end. But for me, because I had young kids, I didn't have that luxury of being like, I'm going to fight for you. I was like, I gotta fight to keep these kids, and how am I going to deal with this on my own? And so it was a different mindset for me.
Because the kids were more the part. Well, not more the part, but
right. Yeah, they didn't give me a chance to fight for him. I was like, they were like, we need to eat. Can we go to Chick-fil-A? And let's leave the house because Daddy is being mean.
How old were they then?
Oh gosh, 6, 7, and 11. So they were pretty young. Like Olivia was pretty much knew what was happening. And I remember the day she came to me and she said, he's not going to make it, is he? And I was like, no, sweetheart. Because at that point, the chemo and the steroids they had him on just
wiped him out.
It blew him up. It made him swollen in the face, swollen in the belly, the arms. He just looked like a different person. And mind you, Tommy was lean and tall and fit.
Yes.
And so we were just like, it just changed his whole, like he couldn't talk very well. You could see, like you look at his eyes and it's like the life was leaving him. And so we had him in hospice in our house for a while.
Yeah, I had heard. Well, how long was he in hospice?
He was in hospice for probably about 3 months, 2 months in the house. But I had called, there were numerous nights where I end up having to call the fire department because I'm trying to walk into the bathroom and he falls. I can't pick him up. And I remember sitting on the bathroom floor looking at him, and he's looking at me, and I just start crying, and I'm just like, I can't lift you up. We're just going to sit here.
Yeah.
I cannot do it. Like, I don't have the strength. I don't have the mental strength. And by that point, the fire department knew me by name. All right, Mrs. Parham, there's got to be some other way because we can't keep coming out here to pick him up for you. But it had gotten to that point, and he wasn't able to use the bathroom. I remember having to put him in diapers. And the straw for me that really just killed all like this is no longer a husband relationship, was like me having to change him. And I thought it was such a weird situation for me, because I do that for my babies, not my husband, who's my protector.
How did that make you? Yeah.
By that point, Tommy had no sense of like what was really going on.
Right.
So he wasn't like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed.
Yeah. No, I mean just the thought. I think that's the thing too. It's that transition where this is the men, these strong men that took care of us.
Yes.
Now we're taking care of them. Yes.
It
hurts. Yes. That was the part that was like the hardest. Because I remember when John. But the thing, the hope part with John, like he gets this bad news in the hospital. Remember, he's still there, February 3rd.
Yeah.
My birthday's February 6th. And we're talking about accountability, me and my schedule, right? It's like, literally, I'm laying in I have my landline. I answer the call, and it was early in the morning, so I was like 8 a.m. And I knew it was him, obviously. And all I hear is, happy birthday to you. And I'm like, how can you get this horrible news that you're dying 3 days and you are calling, singing me happy birthday? So that was the whole, made me want to fight. I'm like, this is the man. That's the part people don't understand. It's like, that is the love part. It's like that. Yes, you're not. Still, yes, it's like you're still. Yes, I'm like, just to see the strength that he's putting his own emotion aside. Yes, yes, and it's like, that part is, and it was just like, all right, we're gonna fight this. I still was on this whole, we're gonna fight this. Yeah. Unlike John, Tommy, because John never went on hospice. Yeah. Yes. So I mean, his was super quick. So it's like, then we had our wedding anniversary. It was February 16th. So the following week after that, he had Sierra came and visited, and he insisted Josh and Sierra take him. By then he was still, he was then getting weak at that point. Yeah, he was getting really weak. And he's like, I got to get your mom tulips. I got to get her tulips. He's like, take me. He didn't. Yeah, of course they tell me later. It's like, take me to. I think they went to Wegmans or somewhere close. Got to get her tulips. And he's like, yes. And then later on, he told a lot of his friends and family. He said, make sure she has. I think he said tulips in Starbucks. So I can always make sure. I can remember that she keeps. Yeah. But yes. And I remember him just walking. The same thing. That sluggish walk, and he had to wrap, and he was trying to bring the tulips in, and I was like, oh, I said thank you, and then and so then I'm like, we went back into chemo because I was like, I would not let it go. I'm like, I've got to save him. Like, no, like we're gonna figure this out, and so then he we went back and we told him on Nova, I was afraid to leave the house because I wanted to go run out real quick. And I remember I wanted to run out, but I was afraid to. I'm like, is he going to be okay? Because I didn't know what death meant, so I didn't know. Like unlike like Tommy, who was doing all that. You saw the transition. Like remember, John's still like kind of himself. Yeah. He still remembered me. We're still talking. Right, so he's like at the point like, where are you going? I'm like, oh, I'm going to run to Starbucks. Or I was doing Pilates for Pete. But then at that time too, I was. During his sickness, I was afraid to tell him where I was because I was going to the ER because I was having so much anxiety. Yes. And so I remember laying in I'm like, my chest is pounding, and they're like, I think it's anxiety, and he was like, where were you? And I wouldn't tell him I was at the ER because I didn't want him. I'm like, yeah. So I
remember. I actually went to the ER too. They had to like put me like things on my chest, and I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then when they asked me what was going on at home, they were like, I was like, oh. Okay.
Yes. I'm like, I was like, I can't. I'm like, yes. I literally was like, I can't. And then I was like, okay, but I felt calmer at the ER. Then I'm like, I've got to get home to see. Yeah, but that time I was like. Then I'm like, okay, what is death? I'm like, I didn't know anything about death. I had never lost any family members. My parents are still living. I'm like, do they stop? Do they fall out? I'm like, had no clue of the process of death. And so I just remember that I came home and I had been out running errands or something. I can't remember. It was a whole toilet tissue time too. And I'm like, and he was asleep, laying in the bed, sleeping. I mean, I said, John, I go, are you? And it was like 4 p.m. And I was like, what is? I said, are you? Then I'm like, oh my gosh, is he gone? I'm like, he just laid on. I go, I'm like, John, it's like, you know how newborns, you like try to put your
Yeah.
finger
Are
up
you
to see it
still-
under their nose, to see if they're still alive.
Yes.
I mean, still breathing. And I go, John, he's like, yeah. And I said, they told me I've got to get you to the, yeah, that's what they had gotten, another report. His sodium had gone up. They're like, you need to rush him to the, get him to the ER because of his sodium. And so, yeah, I'm right here at Inova. They're getting his sodium down and checked him in. He's still able to still talk because he was like, what is the weight? He's like, what's going on? And so so that would have been the last of February, right? So it's from the news to his death was 3 weeks that we found out he was dying. And so he would been in the hospital. I said, is the sodium down? So can I come pick him up? And someone called me, one of the doctor, or the office, you know how they have the floor doctors called me. And she goes, where are you? I said, oh, how is this? Can I pick up my husband now? Is the sodium down? She says, where are you? I said, oh, I'm leaving the gym. She's like, do you have family close by? I go, no, I have a daughter. And she's like, yeah, his sodium's down, but I think he's dying. I go, what? I literally left from Gainesville. I think I was probably going 100 miles per hour. I said, what is that? She goes, have your daughter come. It's quick. You remember, she's in Frederick.
Yeah.
She goes, whoever you can have come, just have them come. And I just remember running into praying, please be alive, please be alive, please. When I was driving, please be alive. And which is, again, ironic because I'm right, that's where he was, right here across the street. Mm-hmm. And so I running, like literally just flying into the hospital, just praying, be alive. And I said, where? I said, oh my gosh. I said, what's going on? I said, why do you think his vitals are changing or something's going on? I can see his vitals just suddenly changing. So she said, he's being kind of honorary. He says, don't touch him. And I said, because people have been messing with him. I said, I'm sure he knows who I am. And she's like, I don't think, he's kind of disoriented. So I just remember saying, I went up to him, I said, John. And he's like, yeah. I said, who am I? He's like, DeeDee. I said, when's your birthday? He says, November 14th. I said, he's okay. I said, I got to get him out. I knew he was dying then, but I didn't know again what that meant. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he can't die in the hospital. She says, ma'am, he's going to have to go in hospital. You can't take him. I'm like, he's not going in the hospital. So I rode in the ambulance with him. Yeah. I said, we're getting him out of here. And this year they came to pick up the car, and I just remember it being a rainy night, and they took him up to the bed. It was a young girl. She was a driver, and the guy. But I remember that when they got him in the bed, and he still had his hot, and she looked at me before they left, and she stopped on the top of my stairs. She says, we don't see this every day. She goes, you guys really loved each other. Mm-hmm. And so then so then we had, I said, what does this mean? They're like, we're going to have, so that he was on hospice for, I guess, 24 hours a day. But when the nurse came, she says, oh, hi, I'm your, she's really friendly. But John was conscious. He knew who I was still. He was, but I was trying to take off his, that hospital gown. Yeah. I said, okay, we're home. Let's take off the gown. And he literally, his arms were straight down, just like this, mm-hmm. like full force, would not let me. I go, John, can we just take off let me just put your regular pajamas on. I could not lift his arms at all. He was holding them down, and I'm like, and so the college, when she was not in college, the hospice nurse was like, hi, Mr. John, and she was trying, they do the vitals and stuff, and I was trying to give her instructions, like, what are you doing? Like asking her questions, so I saw John's mouth moving, and I go, oh my gosh. So I remember saying to the nurse, I said, he's talking. I said, what is he? I go, what is he saying? So I went over it, literally bent down by them, and I was like, what are you, I'm thinking that there's gonna be some last minute request, like, oh, make sure you take, I'm like, maybe he's trying to tell me something. Because before I was trying to get him to write on the Sharpie, like, mm-hmm. Is there please write. I remember him writing the password to his laptop or something. He just was still thinking like, she needs this. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Yes. And he's like, I said, I was trying, throwing out anything I could have, like laptop password. What is it? What is this? How do I, like, and so when I was bending down to ask him, I said, what are you saying? Like, thinking again. He says, literally in this clear voice, been listening the whole, he's like, let her do her job. I'm like, that leadership, I go, oh my God. I was happy in a way because he was still conscious of all this, we were talking around him.
Yeah.
And he's like, let her do her job. And so next, you know, they gave me, I don't know, they gave me that little book, What to Expect for Death. Yeah. They're like, if you want to read this, I'm like, I'm not reading this. I'm like, I
read through it.
You did?
Yes.
At what point? Exactly. Well, he was in the hospital throughout the hospital.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not reading that book. Like, don't want to know.
Yeah.
So then, you know, Sierra and Josh, they had spent the night, you know, they had to bring the car, and the boy, and I just remember, well, there's another stuff too, but anyways, they were over. Josh said, I remember, it didn't dawn on Josh. Josh was, you know, we were in and out checking on him in the room. Then they said get a hospital bed. So I think they didn't want him to die in the bed,
yes.
our bed.
Yeah.
But again, so they're like, you're gonna have to get a hospital bed from John Hopkins. They'll bring it, or they drop it off. But and I remember Josh and I trying to move him. But like you're talking about Tommy. I said, how do we get him out of the bed, Josh? And he's like, 1, 2. And we lift him on the hospital bed. But so his was the weekend, so the hospice nurses don't come on the weekend. So which I didn't like. So they because he passed on that Sunday, so got him the hospital. Their ambulance was Friday, and he passed that Sunday. And when he had a friend from church came, a good friend of ours, actually not just church, a good friend, Greg came. He said, what can I get you? Water bottles? He's like, he was trying to keep the boys distracted on what was going on. At that time, they were 3-year-old. They didn't have Shiloh yet, so it was just 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. That was another thing about us. So we had a birth during this time too. And so he was trying to keep the music loud so the boys wouldn't know what was going on. So that we called when he stopped. So I went downstairs. He says, we're going to watch you eat, Greg. He says, we're going to watch you eat. Because they knew I just been gluing just looking at John literally like a baby, like the whole night. I don't think I slept for 2 days. I was just like this looking at him, like, he's still breathing. And I would take pictures and videos of him. And he's like, just come down and I want to see you eat. And they always say they don't go when you're in front of them, right? And so our loved ones are in front of them. And so that's when and I remember Josh standing behind me, and I was like, and Sierra was weird. Oh, we're just eating, we're talking to Greg, and Josh not saying a word. I go, what's up? I said, why are you looking like that, Josh? And he's like, he's not breathing. And I just remember dashing upstairs. I'm like, no. I'm still on Save John. We called the paramedics. And they kept saying, does he have a do not, what is that,
DNR?
Yes, I'm like, I don't know, what does that mean? I'm like, yes, no, he does. Meaning does he want to be resuscitated? That's another one. And so I said, and the beauty is, this lady, here's is we had the police, we had the police and the paramedics. They literally had just gotten our will done. That was another thing we did. 2 weeks, he was still sick, but we were going, he wanted to make sure all that was done in the trust. But she flipped through all of the binder, and she's like, yeah, I see it. They took the time we see it. He wants to be, they threw him out of off the bed and started resuscitating him. And I remember Sierra saying, Mom, how long are you gonna let this happen? Come on. And she's like, you can't, she goes, we can't just keep, so then I remember them saying he has and they said, oh, we found a pulse. Now in hindsight, they only wanted them, he had to have the only way to get him out of the house was to get him to the hospital is to have some type of pulse.
Oh.
Yes, or else, or else his body would have been there, right? Because it was the weekend.
Yeah.
So they had, so they got him to the hospital, and that was the first. And then when I got there, Angel actually and Jason, they drove me, and I'm used to ERs where I'm like, where did you guys take my husband? And I just remember they said, are you Miss McFall? I go, uh-huh. They're like, come this way. I go, okay. yes, I just remember this white. I had never been to morgue. That's another thing people don't realize when you talk about the whole widow. I had never been in a morgue, and I said, "What is going on?" She sat with me and she kept saying, it's your call. His vitals keep going in and out. We have a pulse, and she's showing me the chart. His heart, that's his heart. His heart's going in and out. His heart's going in and out. And she's like, "We'll keep trying." I go, and I knew he was gone. It's just that making that fun. I'm like, now I have to just call his death.
Yeah.
And so she's like, "We can keep trying." And then I just remember looking at the clock, and I said, "It's almost midnight." I said, if they could still keep resuscitating him until midnight, it won't be February. It'll be March, because I didn't want him going in February. Hence the White February, yes. My nonprofit is White February. And so that I said, he's gone. This will just be for me to put on his death certificate March 1st. Only for me would be selfish when I know, God knows, he's already gone. And I said, you can call it. And she says, "But you need to identify him." I go, "What?" I said, "What are you going to identify him?" She's like, "I need you to see his body. I said, "I can't do it." She's like, "You have to." She goes, "Is anyone, you have to need a family member to identify his body." But I remember there's a guy at the desk, and no one's in, and I'm just, when I was walking, I was like, literally was like, he was the same. I just remember him laying, not the same, his eyes were open, and they still had that tube in his mouth trying to resuscitate him. So all I saw was his eyes wide open. And I just remember going, I don't know why I thought I could do like that. I was like, can I try to close his eyes? Yeah. And no, and that was my last physical time seeing. And I just remember, I said, "I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry that this is how it ends."
But it's interesting that you talked about they don't want to see, your loved one doesn't want to see you pass. Mm-hmm. And so that was my situation as well. I was not there when he passed. So when he left our house, when I could no longer care for him in the house, I put him in hospice in
that's a facility?
The hospice facility.
Okay.
And so he was there. And the thing about it is when he became sick, or right before he became sick, is when I decided to become a life coach. And at the time, he was still able to talk to me. He set up my website and did all the IT stuff because he was a cybersecurity person. And I just remember him telling me, "I think you'd do good with this. I want you to go for it. And so I say that because when he got very sick, at that time, I was talking to him about possibly doing a video for the retreat that I wanted to do. And so he was always supportive, go for it. And so I said, all right, I'm going to fly down to Florida for just 2 days
to
do the taping. Yes, to do the video for the retreat. And that's when he decided to pass. And I remember when the hospice floor nurse called me and she said, "Mrs. Parham, things aren't looking too good. His voice he's starting to have the rattling in his chest like that. I think that's one of the stages of death." And I said, "Can you please tell him I'm coming home tomorrow? Can he just wait for me to come home?" And I knew in the pit of my stomach he wasn't going to wait for me. And I feel like he didn't want me to be there.
No. Yes.
And I just remember being in Florida that night, at 8:00, and my flight was the next morning. And they called me and they were like, "Mrs. Parham, I'm sorry, but your husband has passed." And I just remember at that instant, I was so grieved that I felt like I wanted to get sick. I wanted to go to the bathroom and I wanted to scream. And I did the screaming part.
Yes.
But I just was so,
it's emotional. It's like you're
out of body.
I was just gonna say, yes, it's out of body.
It was out of body, and I just was so disoriented, and I think also very tired, because for me, I had more of that caregiver, long caregiver. I hadn't been working for that entire 18 months because one, it was COVID, which helped in that respect, but then I also was the main caregiver, so I was just involved with this lifestyle for the past 18 months. I had let myself go. I had gained so much weight.
I did, me too.
I was in sweatpants and t-shirts every day. I just was barely making it because I had to take the kids to school and then still care for him. So it had just started to really take effect on me, and I just remember when I knew he was passing. I remember before we moved him out of the house, I told my oldest, I said, Olivia, I want you to go down to where Daddy is, because we had him in the basement at this point, because it was more space for the hospital bed and stuff, which John Hopkins delivered. And I said, Olivia, you need to talk to Daddy and tell him whatever you want, because there's not much time. And she was scared, and I said, I'll come with you, because at this point, mind you, the kids were like, what? That's not our dad, because he doesn't look the same and he can't even really talk. So at this point, he's not talking.
Were they afraid of him?
They were afraid. You know, death, all of it, everything was just like, what is that? So it was like the basement that nobody wanted to go down to, right? So I said, come on, Olivia, come with me. So she went down there, and she just went over to his bed, and she put her hand on his chest, and she said, Daddy, I just want you to know that I'm very angry. And mind you, she's like 12. I'm very angry. And she said, and I'm hurt, and I'm going to be really sad because you aren't going to be there when I graduate from high school. You're not going to be there when I get married, and you're not going to be there when I have my babies. And I just thought, that child should not have to say something like that. You know, like for you and I, we've had good, strong male figures in our lives. My father walked me down the aisle. I had all those experiences. She was starting to recognize that this is what death is for her. Like, she's not going to see these moments with her father. And all he could do, he couldn't speak, but he just... He did that. It
was always those signs that they're still comprehending. Yeah, so you don't know if they're for the brain. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. So he was able to, like, he knew, and
for some kind of
And I just remember whispering to him at that time. I said, Tommy, I give you permission. I give you permission to go.
You're right.
I was like, the Curls and I are going to be okay. We will take care of everything. Like, don't worry. You know, and I feel like because the love was so that strong, I feel like they were really hanging on. Oh, they probably would have left a long time.
Oh no, yes, John was definitely.
But like, right, it was just hanging on for us, because I just was. They could feel the frantic, like, I don't know if I'm ready to let go of this. Like, what's my life going to be without you? How am I building?
It really felt like, I always think that, like, you know, it was the first time I really dawned on me about when you see those movies, like the old Westerns, or anyone getting, and you're just like, don't leave me. It's like, you can't leave. That's how I felt. Like, you can't leave me. No. Like, I would do, like, anything. It's like, no, it's like, this is not yes. Time. And I'm like, how did we get to, it's still like, how did we get to this point? You're just, I'm like, what happened?
And then you just go into, you know, and that could just be a whole nother episode.
Like,
after the death. But this is where you and I thrive, right? Because we went into planning mode and like, you know, the events that were going to take place because he passed. And, you know, your husband was a Sigma, my husband was a Kappa. So we had like all of the Greek involvements and like my sorority, my Jack and Joe moms, like it was just like, okay, you know, you're so busy, go. Right. You planned a party. It was like we didn't have a chance to really
grieve. Because we were still taking. Well, it was interesting too when you're talking about Tommy's with the business with their, like, that was how I got mine started. John did all the paperwork for Lip Lift Stylist. He was like the first. He's like, all right, so tell me about your, he was my biggest cheerleader. He's like, what's the name? Yes, and I was just like, I think it's Lip Lift Stylish. And he's like, then I get the paperwork from the tax office. They're like, here's your EIN.
Yes,
Look,
yes,
Sky. You already
yeah.
did all that.
Yeah. All right, so this is DeeDee and I's story, and so we hope that you were able to connect and learn a little bit more about us and our story, and we look forward to our next episode where we talk a little bit more about how we moved on from there. So
yeah.